Sige. Roy is a fourth-year BS Physics student, currently affiliated as an undergraduate researcher at the Quantum Fluids Group under the National Institute of Physics Theoretical Physics Group. As a student researcher, he is very interested in very cool, pun intended, quantum phenomena realizable on current experimental platforms such as time crystals. Wow. As someone who came from relatively unknown schools before UP, Roy experienced the glaring disparity in the quality of science education between UP and other schools in the country. He aspires to share his undying passion for science and physics and hopes to inspire future Pinoy scientists who long for a role model to look up to. So one of our graduating students in class, hopefully ay sumabay na, no? We have with us Roy. Tapahan natin. Ay, hindi pa nagkoconnect. Sige.
Lander?
Hello. Hello everyone.
Yeah.
So before I start, let me tell you something. I have a confession to make. Remember that I am a graduating BS Physics students. When I was a child, I hated physics. Yeah, when I was a kid, I loved everything related about astronomy, space, and planets and stuff. It's just quite ironic considering that astronomy is literally applied physics, you know. But anyways, I as a kid love astronomy for the simple reason that it has a lot of very beautiful pictures. Like, look at this, right? And more than that, astronomy allowed me to actually question a lot of otherworldly stuff. Stuff like, are there aliens out there? Are there other people on the other planets? Is there an end to the universe? What does it feel like to live in Mars? And those kind of questions shaped the way I viewed the world, and it actually shaped my philosophy in life. Whereas in physics, when I was a kid, they introduced physics into something like I should memorize a lot of concepts, I should memorize a lot of equations, I have to calculate a lot of stuff that I don't even know why am I doing it. This is literally my reaction when I was a kid and I was studying physics. And I can attest to this, that a lot of Filipino students out there are learning and experiencing science the way I did experience my physics. And I believe that kind of experience makes students hate science. Now, let me tell you something. A big disclaimer, I know that science is hard and physics is hard, and I know that this subject will not be for everyone, but I believe that this is actually not the reason why students hate science. And I believe that students actually hate science because of the way we teach it. Right now, our current education focuses, it's so very obsessed with the notion of rote memorization and shoving every disconnected concepts and equations and stuff to their students' mouths to the point that students don't actually know what they're learning. And they don't even know whether those concepts can be actually applied in real life. They don't even know whether something like a cell even exists because it's so badly motivated that they don't even care. Like, I'll give you an example. I bet, and every one of you out here, one way or another, knows by heart that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. But has any one of you actually saw a mitochondria? I know what it looks like. It looks like this. This is exactly the experiences of other Filipino students out there. Like, imagine if you're a public student coming from a school without science lab, and the only evidence that you have about the mitochondria is this black blob. Then, if I was that student, I wouldn't even care about learning science at all. And another problem that I would point out in the way we teach science right now is that we teach science in a very dogmatic manner. We treat science as something that there's only one way to do science, and that if you do another that is very different from what we've sinakasanayan natin, then you're wrong and you fail your class. A best example of this is the way we teach science, the scientific method right now to our students. Like, for the longest time, I believe that the scientific method is actually linear. And the way the science works is that you do observation, and then you do hypothesis, and then you test your hypothesis using experiments, and then you do analysis, form conclusions, and write a paper, pass it to your instructor, let it be graded, and you're done with it. But here's the thing. When I was studying here in UP, and I'm actually doing my research for my thesis, the scientific method that I actually experienced is very different from this scientific method taught to me when I was in high school. If anything, the scientific method that I actually experienced is something that looks like this. There's no such thing as linearity in the scientific method that I know. And if anything, every step that I do in my research has, one way or another, involved me questioning stuffs that I don't know. And at first, that made me feel like science is daunting. But honestly, sooner than later, that made me realize that science is supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be exciting. You're supposed to learn something every step that you do. And that's the thing about our science education right now, is that it's so obsessed with rote memorization to the point that our educators tend to forget that science is supposed to be an inquiry-based subject. Students are supposed to be able to question and answer stuff on their own. And that's a problem, because in this kind of education setup, we make our science education very elitist. It reinforces the idea that there's only certain few individuals who can actually do science and fully appreciate science for the simple reason that they can memorize a lot of concepts. Whereas the rest of the populace are left there afraid of science and afraid of hearing another word, mitochondria. And you know what the problem with a populace that is afraid of science? You create a populace that is very much full of anti-science, pretty much full of conspiracy theories, of flat earthers, of anti-vaxxers, of people who believes that cabbage heals cancer. So at this point, you may be thinking that, hey, aren't you being a little bit unfair to our educators? You're blaming them a little bit too much? Honestly, I'm not blaming them. If anything, they are victims of our systems as well. Because if anything, our current science education is a product of our capitalist society. Our capitalist society only uses science as nothing more but a tool to create efficient human calculators, efficient human Wikipedia, only to create products that they can use to create profit, or worse, use those very same efficient human calculators as export commodities, OFWs, something like that. So in this capitalistic society, science education is dehumanized. Students, educators, everyone is dehumanized. So how do we actually make science humane again? I have a proposal. What if science is built around curiosity? What if we teach science as a curiosity-driven field? What do I mean by a curiosity-driven science education? What I mean is that, simple actually. What I mean is that in this kind of education, every students are allowed to ask the dumbest questions that they can ask, and encouraging them and allowing them to answer those things on their own with the guidance of their educators. Dumbest questions like, why is the sky blue? Why is the earth not flat? Why is it brown? And etc. In this kind of science education, we put science back to the social-cultural, socio-economic, socio-political context that those students live in. We make science relatable to the community that they live in. Science in this kind of education setup works for the people. So how do we actually fix our current science education right now? Actually, first and foremost, we have to make sure that the government actually funds our education sector. How? Just imagine, how would students even do their own experiments, actually test their hypothesis if they don't even have science lab. Worse, they don't even have classrooms or textbooks. And how would a student actually know that the mitochondria actually exist if they don't even have compound microscopes to look at them? And more importantly, we have to make sure that students have access to media, literatures, and etc. that will represent the Filipino science community. It is important that our students know that we, the Filipino science community, actually exists. We have to make sure that the students actually know that there's something far beyond the four corners of their classroom. That students who dream of becoming scientists knows that their dreams will not just stay as dreams, but rather something as attainable throughout their life. This is important if we want to actually create a distinct identity as a Filipino scientist. Now, going back to my own story, you might be asking right now, why did I do physics if you hated it as a child? Did you just love it? Yeah, I will answer that I love physics now because UP allowed me to actually love physics. It actually taught me how beautiful science can be if you just allow the students to explore it. And I know that's a huge privilege right now, given all of our education set up right now. And I want to extend that kind of privilege to every single Filipino students out there who believed once that they could become a Filipino scientist, but yet had to abandon that dream because of our abysmal education sector. I want to partake in this speech that everyone deserves to love science. Thank you.